Wow, cheering. Don't get your hopes up too high. All right. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. It's wonderful to be speaking here today. There we go. All right. So has anyone ever been stressed in the audience? It happens. Oh, I see. There's the fan club back there from the Benson-Henry Institute. Yes, stress is all around us. It's ubiquitous in our world today. And of course, midlife is no exception. So I have an example, a completely, absolutely hypothetical example of a woman who is at midlife, who is dealing with a mother who is suffering with Alzheimer's disease, and a large group of siblings who are at times arguing about how best to deal with the situation, with children who are teenagers, and we all know how teenagers are, and with a husband who, although is very, very well-meaning, I mean this, he's very well-meaning, at times is like having a third child in the family. There's really, I can't deny that. So a woman, this hypothetical woman, is clearly under a lot of stress. In addition, she's suffering from some of the things that people get at midlife, for example, like insomnia. The problem with stress is that we have this very ancient system for dealing with stress, a system that's been around since animals evolved, right? A system that prepares you to fight or flee, the fight or flight response, right? That system for dealing with stress served us very well as we were evolving. It serves us less well now as we are facing the kinds of stresses that you don't necessarily have to run away from. If you get a nasty email from your boss, getting ready to fight or to flee is not the right response, probably. All right, so this is just a memory test. I'd like you all to memorize this. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. No, I just show this to make a point. So this shows both the nervous system and the hormonal system responses to stress. And I just want to make the point that those two systems are intimately intertwined in how they respond to stress. We'll have a test on this, later. All right, this is Dr. Herbert Benson, who's the founder of our institute, and this is the book that he wrote back in the mid-1970s, The Relaxation Response. Has anyone read this book? It's a great book. It still reads very well. It's short. I like short books. He was one of the people who who brought evidence that supported the fact that many of these very ancient traditions, like meditation, may be valuable tools for us in keeping people healthy today. And when he wrote this book, this was one of the first forays into trying to make that point for health and disease in the modern world. The term he used was the relaxation response. The relaxation response, you'll notice that parallel stress response, relaxation response. The relaxation response can be thought of as a conceptually opposite state to the stress response. So with a stress response, your body gets ready to fight or to flee. In the relaxation response, it conceptually does the opposite. So it's a state that's brought about by many kinds of mind-body practices, like meditation. Have people heard of meditation? Yes. We were just talking about yoga, Tai Chi, and other kinds of mind-body approaches. And what you see in the relaxation response is you see changes, physiological changes, like decreased heart rate, decreased breathing rate, increased exhaled nitric oxide, and the like. This is Jon Kabat-Zinn. He is another person who, around the same time as Dr. Benson was doing his work, took the Buddhist concept of mindfulness, the very ancient Buddhist concept of mindfulness, and brought it into modern medicine. I really like this definition that he uses for mindfulness, so I'm going to read it. So mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. And that last part, non-judgmentally, is a very important component of the definition. So I should point out also the term mindfulness, there's both sort of a narrow definition of mindfulness and sort of a broad definition of mindfulness. Mindfulness broadly is sort of what I think of as kind of a synonym to mind-body. So all this kind of stuff, yoga, tai chi, meditation of all different kinds, that's sort of the broad definition. The narrow definition is the definition of mindfulness, like mindfulness meditation, a certain kind of meditation where you're doing an open awareness meditation, where instead of trying to do something with your brain, you are simply trying to observe and be present to whatever's going through your brain. All right, so meditation is just one of many mind-body approaches, but I want to tell you a little bit more about it in depth. As I mentioned, it's something that has been a tradition in many cultures. There are versions of this in many cultures for hundreds and thousands of years that have existed. And Herb Benson likes to use this definition. So meditation is something that breaks the train of everyday thought. And really the way it does it is by having the meditator adopt a non-judgmental attitude toward whatever is happening in their experience while they're meditating. So are there any people in the room, I bet there are, who say to themselves or say to their friends, I can't meditate. I tried it, I just can't do it. Anyone? Yeah, I see people raising their hands. So meditation, this is a thing that is a common experience. As I like to point out, meditation is not a contest. There's no competitive meditation prize. Doesn't work like that. So, of course, when you sit and you try to meditate, you can expect your mind to be busy. As I like to say, I don't know, I know Herb Benson has. I haven't met the Dalai Lama, but I bet if you asked him, he has trouble keeping his mind quiet at times too. I'm sure that he's better at it than I am, but I'm sure that he has trouble with that as well. You can't blank your mind. That just doesn't happen. What the goal of meditation is treating that attempt to get sustained focus as a journey, not as a destination. It's not where you're trying to get to, it's the process that you're using to get there. What is totally normal, and there's neuroimaging data, I won't burden you with any of that data today, but there's neuroimaging data that shows this, is this completely normal cycle of, okay, I'm focusing on something, say you're focusing on your breath, focusing on my breath, and then your mind starts to wander. You start thinking about, oh gosh, I have to run by the store on my way home and pick up that thing, and then you realize, oh my gosh, my mind is wandering. And then there are two ways to respond to that. One way is to say, oh, my mind is wandering, I can't meditate. This is ridiculous. I give up. Another way is to say, oh, my mind is wandering. What do you know? Let me just focus back on my breath again. And just let that happen over and over and over again. And as you do that, you get better and better and better at doing it. And I'll talk about this later, but there are benefits to you, both brain and body, that accrue as a result of that practice. Who would like to try it? Well, we're going to try it, whether you want to or not. We're going to do it, so just get ready. All right. This is a picture I took, so it's not copyrighted. I'm not violating any laws. All right, what I'd like you all to do, we're just going to do a few minutes. Don't be frightened. What I'd like you all to do, if you're comfortable doing so, is take things out of your lap, put your feet flat on the floor, rest your hands comfortably either in your lap or on the arm of your chair. If you're comfortable doing so, you can close your eyes. If you're not, you can just sort of adopt a soft focus on the ground in front of you, the chair in front of you. And I'd like you to let your spine be long, your back straight but not stiff. Maybe allow the crown of your head just to aspire gently toward the ceiling as a way of supporting good posture. And what I'd like you to do first is just take a deep breath in and then out. And then do that one more time, in and then out. And now let your breath just achieve its own natural rhythm. Your body knows how to breathe. Just let it. And take a moment to just focus on the breath. Maybe you notice it most coming in and out of your nostrils. Cool on the in-breath, warm on the out-breath. Maybe you notice in the gentle expansion and contraction of your belly as you breathe. Maybe you feel the air filling your chest as your chest expands and contracts. Wherever you feel it, take a moment to let your awareness sit there and notice it. Thoughts intrude, if emotions arise, there's no need to do anything. Just notice them, and then, without judgment, as you're comfortable, turn your attention back to your breath. Now, as your breath goes in and out, and in and out, I'd like you to add 2 words. 2 words that you repeat in your mind. On the in-breath, just. On the out-breath, this. Just this. Just this. Again, if thoughts intrude, if emotions bubble up, just notice them, and without judgment, go back to just this. Go back to the breath. Now take a moment to allow your awareness to move from just this and from your breath to the room around you, to the sounds in the room. And then let your normal thoughts return. And as you're comfortable, remembering that you can take this feeling of peace and relaxation with you for the rest of the day, allow your eyes to open and come back to the room. Any thoughts? Any feedback? What's that? Relaxed. That's great. I mean, that's a good thing. It's not relaxing for everybody, especially if you've never done this before. And I don't want anyone to take that as a bad sign. This is why it's called a meditation practice. Did anyone have a negative experience or not completely positive one they want to share? Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. In today's world, I would say absolutely. We always say, you know, if you fall asleep when you're meditating, it means that your body needed to sleep. Yeah.
You say, John, a lot of midlife women have trouble with sleep, and so meditation before bed can be a great time to do it.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to show some data on that in a second, but yes. So that's one of the things that we teach is that these are great techniques to use before, if you're having trouble with insomnia, these are great techniques to use before bed. Excellent point. All right, let's move on. So let me talk a little bit about, just briefly, about some of the benefits of this practice. So there's been a lot of neuroimaging work done by some very smart people that have shown, and neuroscience, cognitive science types of work, that have shown cognitive changes as well as neuroimaging changes that are associated with meditation. I'm not showing this data here, but there's been data that suggests that meditation can actually increase the amount of gray matter, grow new brain cells, essentially, or at least increase arborization. You can also see increases in attention, in working memory. Functional connectivity within the brain is the way that different parts of the brain are wired together. Another important experience that people have with increased meditation practice is decreased reactivity to negative emotional stimuli. So people become less reactive to bad things that they experience. And then there's an increase in metacognitive awareness, which is basically having more understanding of your own brain and how it's working, which can give you increased levels of calm as you realize, oh, I'm angry, but that's not me. The anger's not me. I just happen to be in this angry emotional state right at the moment. That sort of thing. Another thing that our group has been working on a lot is showing that mind-body practices, things like meditation, like we just did, but also yoga and Tai Chi and other things, are associated with how genes are turned on and off. So mind-body practices have been shown to turn genes on and off in a way that is helpful, although this is a story that is still being completely told, but things like increased expression of genes involved in energy metabolism, increased expression of genes involved in insulin secretion, which can have implications for disorders like type 2 diabetes, increasing expression of genes involved in telomere maintenance, which has implications for longevity. Telomeres, for those who haven't heard of it, are they're like the little plastic things on the ends of shoelaces. They're kind of like those for chromosomes. They help DNA replicate. And then reduced expression of genes linked to inflammatory response, and we've all heard how too much inflammation, obviously you need some to maintain your health, but too much inflammation can be bad in disorders like inflammatory disorders. And then also finally in decreased expression of genes in stress-related pathways. All of these suggest very clear mechanistic paths for how what we just did, that meditation, to have beneficial effects on brain and body. But we're here to talk about midlife, so let's do that. So yeah, that's not my card. I got that from Leslie. I wish I was that creative. So I'm going to talk broadly. I'll get into a little more depth, but I'm going to talk broadly about two big areas. One is hot flashes and the relaxation response, that state elicited by meditation, and also talk about insomnia. This is just sort of a summation of some different findings, mostly positive, but I'll go through some of those now. So this was a study done with more than 30 menopausal women at midlife who were having more than 5 hot flashes per day, were not on hormone replacement therapy, and they were randomly assigned to either get the relaxation response, so get meditation type training like we had just now, to read for a similar amount of time, or to do nothing. That was the control. So the control group had no changes. The reading group had some changes. They showed decreases in anxiety and in confusion, bewilderment, which I have a lot. The relaxation response group had, importantly, pre-post decreases in hot flash intensity. So they actually experienced lower intensity of hot flashes, as well as decreases in anxiety and in depression. The mindfulness-based stress reduction program is a program based on that John Kabat-Zinn first brought to our attention. It's a program similar to the one that we teach at the Benson-Henry Institute, which is the Stress Management Resiliency Training Program. And this was used in a controlled trial, a randomized trial, with 110 patients who had moderate to severe hot flashes and night sweats and symptoms like that. They got an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program. They were followed for 3 months. And they didn't have a decrease in hot flash intensity, but they were less bothered by the hot flashes that they did experience. That's one of the things that we see in meditation research and mind-body research more broadly, is that people become more resilient in the face of things like pain and other kinds of negative stimuli. They also had overall improved quality of life, improved sleep, improved anxiety, and improved perceived stress. We were talking about yoga a little bit before, and I am not a yoga expert, so I can't say anything about postures. We tend to promote the kind of yoga that is less strenuous and more meditative, but there are all kinds of yoga that are beneficial. This was a comparison of yoga to a passive stretching, so people were passively stretched, or to a controlled treatment where they were doing nothing. They were followed for 4 months, and this was specifically to look at insomnia. These were 44 postmenopausal women who were experiencing insomnia. And what you saw in the yoga group was a significant decrease in insomnia, in menopausal symptoms more generally. They had improved quality of life and felt that they were more resilient to stress as well. Those were significant changes, and also significantly better than was seen in either the passive stretching group or in the control group. So that's pretty impressive. So there was a meta-analysis done in 2010. Meta-analysis, for those who don't know, it takes a number of different studies and tries to combine their findings. Because as you probably gathered from the news, studies often find different things, right? One year we're being told one thing, the next year we're being told another thing. What a meta-analysis does is it takes a bunch of studies all together and it groups them to try and say, what do all these studies as a group tell us? So this looked at 18 different trials. 12 of those were our highest standard of evidence. They were randomized controlled trials. They looked at techniques like yoga, meditation, tai chi, relaxation exercises. And the bottom line point was that there was modest evidence that yoga and meditation programs and relaxation therapies reduced vasomotor symptoms like hot flashes. That's good. They weren't perfect studies. There's a lot more data to be gathered. There are a lot more studies to be done. So these weren't perfect studies. And so the conclusion was that mind-body techniques appear to provide some benefit and with minimal side effects and low associated cost, but there's more yet to find out. All right, so what's that?
5:30. So.
Oh, we're done. I'm done. My last slide. I only have 30 more. I only have 30 more slides. See, summary, that was supposed to be the tip-off. Yeah. Stress is important throughout our lives, and of course midlife is no exception to that. And I would say that there are probably things about midlife that make it more stressful than other times of life. Mindfulness and mind-body practices like meditation and yoga, like what we did earlier, can target stress, can increase resiliency. Meditation is not a competitive sport. It's not for everybody, I grant that. There are lots of other techniques, but if you've given it a shot and rejected it right away, I suggest giving it another try. And it has been shown to have positive effects on brain and body, even going down to mechanistic levels like genomics. And then finally, the jury is still out, but there is growing evidence supporting the use of mind-body at midlife. And then finally, I'll just leave you with this final invitation that we have a conference in October. Herb Benson and John Kabat-Zinn will be there talking together, having a conversation together, and everyone is invited. So thank you very much.